This is, yeah. We went to the moon not just once, but several times. And I think the Russians would have called us out on that one if it wasn't true, to say the least. among this is like we went to the moon. Okay.
The Russians didn't like us at the time.
Yeah, the Russians. Soviet Union was not a huge fan of America. They wouldn't have congratulated. Like they were looking at us through telescopes and like, is this real or what? They would have called
bubblegum
if it wasn't. That's for sure. It was a huge, victory, ideological victory for the United States and Western civilization. So, but anyway, the point is like we want to have an exciting, inspiring future, and one where we are a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species. I think it is a much more exciting and inspiring future than one where we are forever confined to Earth and never go back to the moon. And the moon was our high water mark, and that's all we ever did. That's depressing. And there's also, from a long-term basis, if we're a multi-planet species, it's like life insurance for life itself, not just for humans, but for all the creatures on Earth, because we bring them with us, and they can't build spaceships, so we're in effect the steward of life, and we can make Mars like another planet with life on it. It is it's probably a dangerous analogy to use, but it's a bit like Noah's Ark, but we'd bring more than two of every creature, because it's a little incestuous, frankly. I mean, just do how does this work?
Second generation.
And did he hate the dinosaurs? Like, what's why is it like F you to the dinosaurs?
Gotta get answers.
What? It's like pro-incest, bad on dinosaurs. I don't get it anyway. And it would have to be a very big vote. So, but there's it's a metaphor perhaps. I don't know. So anyway, there's some risk, especially over a long period of time, that something calamitous would happen to Earth, and if we're just on one planet, that would be the end of life itself. And certainly the sun is slowly expanding. So the Earth's roughly 4.5 billion years old. Some people might disagree with that, but it appears to be that way. In roughly 500 million years, the sun will expand to make Earth probably uninhabitable. In 1 billion years, definitely uninhabitable. So basically, if intelligent life had taken 10% longer to evolve on Earth, then we would never have evolved at all, because it would be destroyed, because the oceans would boil and we wouldn't be able to exist. So
I mean, no matter what, the universe will end in heat death, though, right? Eventually. So it's all futile to some extent, if you go far enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think if heat death is the outcome of the universe, it really is all about the journey. Like, they said, like, the journey is half the fun is the journey or whatever. Well, if heat death is the end of the universe, the journey is all the fun.
Can we just evolve heat resistance, become like lava beings?
It's not. It's cold.
It cools eventually with entropy, and
I'm not a scientist.
The death of heat.
Right.
Can't we just evolve to that?
It's like entropy, no escaping that from me. Entropy, the ultimate enemy. You thought the devil was bad? Try entropy. Yeah. Okay. Try getting away from that. But yeah, I mean, technically, being a multi-planet species would increase the probable lifespan of civilization and life as we know it. So, I mean, humans don't live forever. But just because we don't live forever does not mean that civilization cannot live much longer than we do. Civilization lives much longer than any individual human. So this is not about like escaping to Mars. This is simply, I mean, I will die probably long before Mars is a self-sustaining civilization. It's just, I think, something we should do in order to have a much longer probable lifespan of civilization. And it's interesting and exciting, and Mars is like an essential next step to, like, there are these, like, filters. They're called like the great filters, and because you have to say like, where are the aliens? You know, it's like the Fermi paradox. Where are the aliens? If the universe is 13.8 billion years old, shouldn't they be everywhere by now? And I'm not aware of any evidence for aliens. People ask me about that too. Where are the aliens? I'm like, man, if anyone would know about evidence of aliens, it would be me. And I've seen nothing. So I think it may have been Carl Sagan who said, there's, like, we're either alone in the galaxy, or there are a lot of aliens, and each answer is arguably equally terrifying. It's like, hey, we found aliens are on their way. Too bad it's the invasion fleet. So I don't know. It's like, where are the aliens? Like, maybe there aren't any in this galaxy, and maybe what we have here is a very, very rare situation. A brief flickering of consciousness in the dark, like a little candle in a vast darkness. And we should not let that little candle go out.
So my dad's a rocket scientist at Boeing, and he had a question.
Rocket engineer.
Well, whatever. And, I'm going to ask.
When people say rocket scientist, they really mean rocket engineer.
Okay, yeah. So he's a rocket engineer, and he says, at what Mach number does Starship endure max Q, maximum dynamic pressure? How much pressure is that? Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah. So. Max Q, maximum dynamic pressure, is when you're at a combination of speed and atmospheric density, such that the wind force on the rocket is the highest. And so as you climb higher and higher, the atmospheric density decays exponentially. So you hit this point of a combination of velocity and air density, which is maximum dynamic pressure or maximum Q. This is mostly a function of thrust to weight. So if you have a low thrust to weight rocket, you will have typically a lower max Q. And if you have a high thrust to weight rocket, you will have a higher max Q if you do not throttle down. And so, and it also kind of depends on what trajectory you're flying. Are you flying a low Earth orbit trajectory, single burn insertion, or say a geosynchronous transfer orbit with a low perigee? Then you'll have a higher max Q, because you'll spend more time going sort of horizontal instead of vertical. Getting to orbit is mostly about is about your velocity parallel to the Earth's surface. So around Mach 23 to Mach 25, so roughly 23-ish times the speed of sound is when you reach orbital velocity, roughly 17,000 miles an hour. So, and that's what it means to go up and stay up. You only need height in order to get out of the high density portion of the atmosphere, so that you don't slow down.
None of that was correct. I disagree.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Agree,
Totally.
disagree?
I give a totally different answer. I don't have time to get into it
No,
right
it
now.
all checks out.
It all checks out.
Yeah, so typically a rocket is going to hit max Q somewhere between Mach 1.4 and 1.8, and that Q level is going to be maybe 400 to 800 pounds per square foot. Now, a Starship is intended to have a high-ish thrust to weight, because with a fully reusable rocket, the cost of propellant starts to become significant. Whereas if you have an expendable rocket or a partially reusable rocket, the cost of propellant is tiny compared to the cost of the rocket. So you actually want a higher thrust to weight to minimize cost per ton to orbit with a fully reusable rocket than you would for an expendable. So probably Starship will have at least a 1.3, if not closer to a 1.5 thrust to weight, which would, without throttling down, which aspirationally we would not throttle down, would have quite a high Q, maybe as high as 1,000 or even 1,200 pounds per square foot. So that's and probably at what velocity? I mean, I'd guess Mach 1.4 to 1.5, something like that.
Okay. Well, my dad very much enjoyed that answer, I'm sure.
I think as a male feminist, though, one thing about the rockets is the phallic symbology. What would it take to get some more vaginal-shaped rockets? Just, for equality. Could we make that happen?
Aerodynamics and hydrodynamics
He's going to give you a serious answer.
share similar properties, whether biological or mechanical.
Okay.
Good answer.
That's all I got on rocket science. Robots.
Yeah, Tesla bot. So you're creating robots. Have you ever seen a sci-fi movie in your life?
Never.
Okay. I thought maybe not.
Like
Because things can go wrong.
Yeah,
They
stuff
could.
happens.
What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
The robots are not the scary part. The scary part is AGI, or artificial general intelligence, digital superintelligence that far exceeds human intelligence. If there's a digital superintelligence that is just vastly smarter than the smartest human, we could lose control of it, and then it could do something bad potentially. These things are just probabilities; they're not certainties. So it's not the it's not the robots; it's the digital superintelligence to be concerned about. I think this is definitely one of the issues that we need to be concerned about as an existential risk. I think we should have a regulatory agency that oversees advanced AI. Because generally, I do think there are important roles for the government, and one of those roles is in regulation of industry to make sure that that the companies are not making shortcuts that endanger the public. So, the FAA has done generally a great job of ensuring that aircraft are safe. It's literally safer to fly on an American airline or any sort of airline overseen by the FAA than it is to live in your house. Just to give people a sense of, you're more likely to die. Your probable lifespan is less if you live your entire life in your house than if you lived on a plane. Because in your house, you can get murdered by a spouse, get bitten by a louse.
But if you live in a plane in Afghanistan, that's not maybe the case.
Well, if it's not overseen by a regulator that like the FAA, then it's not necessarily going to meet the same safety standards.
What if your spouse is on the plane?
Well, I think the planes have, they have means of stuffing. Like it's hard to bring a gun on a plane.
Yeah.
And even a knife or even a bottle of lotion at this point. So
Your spouse couldn't bring any of those things. That's
they'd have to just punch you with or stab you with a spork or something. Plastic spork. It's like hard to kill someone with a spork. And then planes also have flight attendants are trained in first aid. They've got they can do CPR. They've got defibrillators. If somebody's having medical issues, they'll immediately land the plane, and an ambulance will meet you at the airport. So and you're not going to drown in the bathtub or get electrocuted by a toaster, or have your house burned down or because of the toaster. By the way, toasters cause a lot of houses to burn down. So one of the main causes of house burning down are toasters and dryers.
There's also a decent chance there's a doctor on the plane at any given time, right? That happens all the time. Like a doctor is treating somebody on a plane in your house,
Yeah, so planes are very safe, generally speaking, the FDA does a good job of overseeing food and drugs. This might be a bit of a conservative bias on, where at times there's an asymmetry with the FDA where something that could help a lot of people is not approved because it might hurt a small number of people. So there's a sort of like a bit of an asymmetry. So regulators, in general, can have a bit of an asymmetry where they're punished a lot for something going wrong, but not rewarded enough for something going right. So that's just a general challenge with the punishment and reward of regulators. They can be a little conservative. So, but I think there should be a regulatory agency to oversee anything that is a danger to the public. And I think AGI could be a danger to the public, so therefore should have some oversight. And normally regulatory agencies are very reactive. Like for seatbelts, for example, which lack of seatbelts caused, 10 million deaths worldwide. I mean, a massive number. And the car industry fought seatbelts for a very long time. And eventually, after many deaths, the Department of Transport, NHTSA, which oversees this regulatory body for cars, said all cars have to have seatbelts, that you can't just not have a seatbelt. But that, took 15 years or something, or maybe longer, maybe 20 years before seatbelts were mandated. So, and then, baby seats are, a lot of kids and babies died because they're just like sitting on this, on a seat with nothing. I mean, I kind of grew up sitting on a seat with nothing.
Yeah, we'd ride in the bed of the truck.
Yeah, seriously, I rode in the bed of the pickup truck for hours.
Survivor bias or something. I was fine, but
yeah, I mean, I was fine, but if there was an accident, it was game over,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So you do see some good in government when it comes to regulation and stuff like that. But you don't generally think the government can spend your money more effectively than you can.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like generally, I'm like, I think pretty moderate. I'm not like an extreme libertarian. I think there are roles for the government that make sense. Like, I don't think we necessarily want like a private army or private police force or private. Yeah, I think there's certain things that are probably the right role for the government. But anything done by the government is going to be inefficient because the government is a monopoly. Like, people that don't like corporations should not somehow think that the government is much better because the government is a corporation in the limit. It is the ultimate corporation with a monopoly on violence. So like, I think the right role for the government is like to be act in a regulatory capacity, we should aspire to have the government be a limited actor in the economy. So, you could say like, what percentage of economic output should be government, and maybe a third or something like that. Once you start getting above 50% government, I think that's problematic. So you can look at countries like East and West Germany, North and South Korea, and there was just essentially an arbitrary line drawn out to divide the countries. And East Germany was like kind of 100% government. West Germany was, probably at least 40% government. They're like, relatively socialist. And yet the GDP per capita of West Germany was, I think, 5 times higher than East Germany. So that just shows you just how big of a difference it is if you have like something that's close to half government versus 100% government. Private sector is probably a factor of 10 more efficient than the government. And this is also true of just generally, if you have like a monopolistic private corporation, then the forcing function for serving the customer is weak. But at least private corporations can go bankrupt, and the government cannot go bankrupt unless the people go bankrupt. Like, basically, unless it exhausts extracting money from the population. So,
well, they're trying their best. So.
Yeah, it's just so it's just, you want to just, knowing that the government is inefficient as any large monopolistic corporation would be, and it is the ultimate large monopolistic corporation, we should minimize how much the government does. Keep it to what is essential, and not go beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, the conservative concern with that is you start to give them, you give them a foothold, and then they're just going to keep going. Like, you give them a regulatory capacity over something like AGI, and then they're just going to start to, overreach more and more, because that's what we've seen in the past. You give them an inch and they take a mile.
Yeah, but I mean, does anyone realistically want to delete the FAA or the FDA?
Probably somebody.
We got an anarchist here.
We got an anarchist in the corner. Right?
I mean, it used to be like you go to the store, like you buy some whatever steak or something from the store, and it's like poisonous, or like we take for granted that the food we buy is at the store is not going to kill us, because some company cut costs and decided that, having E. coli and salmonella is, who cares, type of thing. So I think, like we take for granted that the food we buy at the stores is not poisonous, and that the drugs we buy, like that, is very extremely unlikely. Like the drugs will be consistent, and they will do what they say they're going to do. Which, except for the sort of vitamin supplements industry, which can basically is unregulated, and so they can say things that are not true, and people still buy it. Anyway, so it's like, I think, you really want, like, you can think of like you want some kind of referee on the field. So like, for like it's like if you're watching, say, a football game or something like basketball, there's referees. Okay, so would the games be better or worse without a referee? They'd be worse. So I think like the role of a referee in games is important, and so the government's role as a referee, I think, is also important. You just don't want to have the government be kind of on the field as a player. It would be weird if the referees just suddenly started playing ball. Probably not. The game would not be as good.
Yeah. Well, and other things that make me think you've never seen a sci-fi movie before, you have Neuralink, so you can like put things in people's brain or something. What's that like?
What's that like?
Is it cool? Do you like it?
Well, try it. You might like it.
Okay, no problem.
Be found in brains.
Yeah, with Neuralink, Neuralink is in part, in fact, the sort of the reason I created Neuralink was long-term as a risk mitigation for digital superintelligence, in that if we are able to effectively achieve symbiosis with digital intelligence, then we're sort of, the collective human will is better able to steer things in a direction that we'd like, or even with benign AI, at least go along for the ride. So, because even with a benign superintelligence, if it's so much smarter than us that that it really can't even communicate effectively because it's so fast, and then like talking to us is like talking to a tree, because if you do a stop motion on like a tree is communicating with its environment just very slowly.
That's how I feel right now.
It's looking for water. The tree roots are looking for water. The branches are looking for sun, and the tree has movement. It's just very slow, and so and we're already at this point partially a cyborg. We're de facto sort of a cyborg in that our phones and computers and applications are a digital extension of ourselves. At this point, like if somebody leaves their phone behind, it's like missing limb syndrome. The phone is almost like a part of you, but the issue with that symbiosis is that the data rate is extremely slow. So like how fast can you communicate with your phone using 2 thumbs? 10 bits per second. It's very low, the data rate. And if computers can, and which they can, communicate at a billion bits per second or more, and we're communicating with them at 10 bits per second, then that's just an extremely slow communication link, and it inhibits symbiosis with our sort of tertiary digital layer. Like, so we've got sort of basically like a primal layer, which is like our limbic system. Basically, it's our instincts and a lot of our emotions, and it's kind of like the reptile brain situation. And then you've got the cortex, which is like the thinking part of the brain, the planning and whatnot. So that's like the second layer, and then our phones and computers are our tertiary layer, but there's just a bandwidth limitation, which we're very slow to communicate. So, but with a neural link, you can increase the communication bandwidth by many orders of magnitude, maybe by 1,000 or more.
So you're talking about output from the brain to other devices,
Yeah,
primarily,
yeah.
not input to the brain.
It would be both ways. Our input is much less constrained than our output because of vision. So, I don't know, like rough approximation is like our input because of vision is like maybe a million times, roughly. Some people are online not going to argue with us, but it's the input is many orders of magnitude higher than output because of vision. A picture says 1,000 words, and a video says, I don't know, 100,000 words. I don't know. It'd be like, there's just, this is why like a meme can communicate so much more than a few words. Now, this is obviously very esoteric, and like I'm not sure this will resonate, with a lot of people. Like, oh, we need to increase the bandwidth between our cortex and our digital tertiary layer by many orders of magnitude in order to not lose symbiosis with digital intelligence. So this is quite esoteric, but that's the long-term existential risk mitigation of Neuralink, which we may or may not achieve. I'm not saying we will achieve this, but it's at least an attempt to solve that. Then along the way, Neuralink can solve a lot of brain issues. Like if you got so if you got like a severed spine or something. So like the first application we're looking to solve is implanting Neuralink in someone who is a quadriplegic or tetraplegic. So like they can't move their arms and legs, or maybe not even really move most of their face. They can like maybe blink or something like that. Like Stephen Hawking, or he didn't have to have severed spine, but he's like there are various mechanical and other like mechanical breakages or diseases that break the link between your brain and body. And Neuralink can solve that. It can certainly, we're confident Neuralink can enable someone who is a tetraplegic to operate a phone or a computer faster than someone who has working hands. We've shown this, for example, with the monkey being able to play video games. So you can play a bunch of games, not just Pong. But Pong is currently its favorite game.
I didn't even know monkeys could play Pong
But
in the first place.
Yeah, monkeys can play Pong with their hand. No
They
problem.
any good?
Yeah,
That's
they're
amazing.
good. Monkeys have good reflexes. And then that's how it starts off. The monkey, we train the monkey to play Pong
Donkey
with a
Kong?
joystick.
yeah.
And then we look at the signals that the monkey's brain is sending, and then we read those signals, and then we transfer the signals directly to the game, and then we take the joystick away, and the monkey's just playing basically telepathic mind
crazy.
Pong.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah. So, and we recently got what we think is a world record in bits per second from any neural device. Like we're starting to approach 10 bits per second, which is not actually not that big, but it's more than anyone else has achieved in a useful way. 10, like close to 10 useful bits per second is where we are, and we'll increase that dramatically over time. So anyway, we obviously want to make sure the device is extremely safe and extremely well tested. Our standards go far beyond what is required from a regulatory standpoint, and we're hoping to do our first Neuralink into a human next year, and like I said, enable someone who has almost no movement capability to operate a phone as fast or we think faster over time than someone who has working hands. So I think that would be quite a significant thing and would help a lot of people. And there are many such applications. And I'm increasingly confident that we can implant a second Neuralink device. So one that accesses the motor cortex and the somatosensory cortex, and then a second one that is past where the injury is. So if you've got a severed, but basically where are the neurons still functional, and implant a second Neuralink device and have the two devices talk to each other and just transfer the signals across where
it broke.
Yeah, because it's like a broken circuit.
Right.
So you've got a broken circuit. You basically just do a signal transfer between the two, and you don't necessarily even need to know what all those signals are. You just need to transfer the signals. So just like if you have like an Ethernet cable, you don't need to know what's on the Ethernet cable for the cable to work, or a wireless Ethernet, from one wireless to Ethernet, Wi-Fi box to another wireless Ethernet Wi-Fi box. You don't need to know what the contents of the signal are in order to transfer the signal. So I'm confident that such a thing is possible. I'm not saying we will do it. I don't want to set unreasonable expectations, but I would say I'm certain that it is possible, and we will try to make it happen, which would then enable people to walk again and use their hands, and I think long-term probably restore full body functionality to somebody who has none.
Did you know that we created an Elon Musk subscription tier at one point on the Bee? Did you ever see that?
No.
You didn't know that we did that? We were, because you
had to pay a lot of money or something?
Yeah, you had interacted with us a couple of times, and so we were like wooing you as a subscriber, come subscribe, but we created our own tier for you. What was the fee on the tier? I don't remember what it was.
I think it was the highest our payment.
It was like $9,999 a month or something. But people were signing up for it. People were actually signing up for it, though. Every time I would check, I'd be like, is it him? Is it him? It was random people who picked it thinking it was a joke, and it was actually charging their credit cards. We had we had all these angry people who were like, my wife is going to kill me if you don't refund this charge. So we had to take the Elon Musk tier down. So we took it down, I guess, before you could find it. But it was there. We had it there for you. So.
Well, thanks. I guess that's a compliment, I think.
All right.
Very eloquently put.
Well, shall we land the plane here with the 10 questions? So
This podcast started in Kyle's garage.
we ask every guest the same 10 questions at the end of the interview.
We never anticipated we would be asking Elon Musk these 10 questions.
These are rapid fire, so you can answer them as quick as you want.
Yeah.
Or you can go on forever.
Yeah.
Your call. Have you ever met Christian rap artist Carmen?
I mean, the only common musician I'm aware of is Carmen Miranda. She would like dance with like a fruit bowl on her head.
Yeah.
Fruit head.
Yeah.
And you never met her?
No, she died.
Okay.
A while ago.
All right.
Cool.
Look him up.
Are you more of a Calvinist or an Arminian?
Or Armenian?
Yeah.
It's like predestination or free
yeah.
will.
Like not
Or
from
you could
Armenia.
say determinism
Armenian.
versus
I'm
free
like that's an interesting.
Yeah. Dichotomy.
I'm like,
Yeah, what's
are those the
originality?
only two choices? You're from
the assumption
Armenia
is that
or you're
Yeah.
a Calvinist?
The only people that know what an Armenian is are Calvinists.
Right.
So free will or predestination is or did I say that right? No, determinism versus free will.
Determinism, free will.
It's kind of the more secular version of that.
I guess my mind would say determinism, and my heart says free will.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, when I grew up, I was, funnily enough, I went to Anglican Sunday school, Church of England, basically. But I was also sent to Hebrew preschool, although I'm not Jewish, but nonetheless, I was singing Hava Nagila one day and Jesus is our Lord the next. And, it's fine if you're a kid, and Santa Claus, and yeah.
Yeah, that answers the question.
Yeah.
So you get to add one book to the Bible. What is it?
You guys have never updated these questions to apply more broadly
Nope.
at any point.
They're unchangeable. Yeah.
They're the Ten Commandments at this point. I mean, a little bit lower.
Or maybe we can have a chapter past Revelations. But is there a happy ending here? The Revelations Part 2, the happy ending?
Well, if there's a really good book you think everyone should read because it would be in the back of the Bible.
Everyone should read this book. Yeah.
Okay, how many people have actually read the Bible?
Fewer than probably say they have, but.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
Do you have
That guy raises
I mean, at one point, I when I was a kid, I was I had this existential crisis, and I was trying to figure out what's the meaning of life. And I was like, oh, it all means nothing. It's all, and I read a whole bunch of religious books, including the Bible, and I'm like, there's a bunch of things in there they didn't teach you in Sunday school. Sodom and Gomorrah, dark. Yikes. God sure changes his mind from the Old Testament to the New Testament. I'm like, whoa. That's pretty vengeful in the Old Testament. What was the question?
You get to pick a book to add to the Bible.
Yeah.
A book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
Yeah, good
It's a
pick.
great book.
Yeah,
It's
great
a
book.
great pick.
Cigars or pipes?
I'm not sure I've ever really smoked a pipe. My grandfather did. It kind of looks cool, but I have smoked cigars. And I think, for a celebratory occasion, cigars and whiskey is a pretty good combo.
You get to hang out with any three people, living or dead. Who are they?
It's always hard to think of three people.
Ethan, Kyle, Seth.
You got three right here. That's true.
Jeff Bezos.
I wouldn't say there's necessarily I think there's a lot of people that would be interesting to talk to. I don't know.
Is it living or dead, you said?
Yeah.
Living or dead. Okay.
This is just stream of consciousness, not a carefully thought out answer, but it would be Shakespeare, Ben Franklin, maybe Newton or Einstein.
Okay.
It's a good group.
Bunch of white men.
Yeah.
All drinking White Claws.
Cleopatra sounds fun.
There you go.
Whiskey or beer? Or, I guess,
Whiskey,
White Claw.
100%.
Okay. All right.
You went right for the whiskey. So,
Nice. All right.
what would be the first thing you would do as president?
Well, the presidency in the U.S. is designed to be a weak position, or relatively weak position, because obviously the founders of the country did not want to create a monarch. Wanted to avoid a king situation. So the presidency in the U.S. is meant to be weaker than, say, in a parliamentary system where the majority, essentially the Speaker of the House, would be the Prime Minister or President. So you have to say, what can you do as the president? In the U.S., there's a lot of limitations, and unless you have the support of Congress, you obviously cannot change the laws. But I probably aspire to reduce the size of government, and take a look at the regulatory situation and just make sure there's a good garbage collection of regulations. So if there are outdated, as there are many outdated and unnecessary regulations, but there's a strong forcing function for creating new laws and regulations, but a weak forcing function for getting rid of bad laws and regulations. And I think this is just generally a problem as civilization ages without war, where there are new laws and regulations created every year. And so there's like more and more constraints on what you can do. But there's very little effort put to remove laws and regulations. And so this is like hardening of the arteries of civilization. And eventually, it'll be like Gulliver's Travels, where you're just tied down by thousands of little strings. And it's not like any one string is the issue, but there's so many strings that you can't get anything done. That's why big part of why I moved to Texas. It's just like there's just fewer strings tying you down. So yeah, I think like the value of someone just being a very competent executive officer is undervalued in a president. Just like how good are you at running things and getting things done? Because if you're the president, you're kind of like the CEO of the country. And so are you good at doing things? Are you effective and productive?
You recently said a CEO is a meaningless title. What does that mean? I'm just curious how that like went.
Well, CEO is not like a legal title.
Okay.
I was just saying that there are all these titles and corporations that are kind of made up, and you can see what is actually required for a corporation when you fill out the form to create one. And so you need a president, a secretary, and a treasurer. Same thing as like if you're forming a chess club or a glee club or something like that. Same thing. And actually, technically, all three can be the same person. So that's what's legally required. If you don't have those three things, you cannot function as a corporation. Everything else, like a general counsel, CFO, CEO, these are all made up. Like they have no meaningful legal bearing.
Sounds cool.
So you only need those the president, secretary, and treasurer. So there's all these like CXO titles, which just are somewhat like resume inflators. I was just making the point that like people think CEO is a real title, but it's not. It's not a legally meaningful title. You need someone who is defined as the president, but that's it. So, but now you have like chief marketing officer, chief information officer, chief everything officer. I sort of think like we should have like a
You derailed it.
a chief sorcery officer. So this is our SVP of sorcery. Great title.
Yeah.
All right, question number 8.
The Master General. Have you ever punched anyone, or have you ever been punched? You got any cool punching stories? If you don't have an answer for that, we have a follow-up. It's even worse.
I don't know about cool punching stories, but where I grew up was extremely violent. I never started a fight, except with my brother, actually. One exception. I did beat my brother up, which I don't know if that's how it goes.
We all did.
South Africa, when I was growing up, was just an inherently very violent place. I got punched in the face many times. I almost got beaten to death once. So, many times. And I think if you have not been punched in the face with a fist, you have no idea what it's like.
Shocking sensation.
Shocking sensation.
Have you been punched, Ethan?
Yeah, but just by like high school kids.
Yeah.
Not really.
Still, it's just like your face never touches anything, and then suddenly.
Yeah, they punched in the nose. Oh.
Yeah.
Like you can't even see straight. So, yeah. It's funny that people think they're so sensitive to words. It's like, man, if you've ever been punched in the face, words don't mean nothing.
All right, question number 9. You get to go to one concert, any band in history. Who do you go see?
Any band in history? I don't know.
Take your pick.
Maybe the Rolling Stones with their, when the peak Rolling Stones seems like.
And heyday, yeah.
Yeah.
Good pick. All right, final question to close
All
our
right.
time out here.
Yeah, I mean, we're here. We're, the Babylon Bee is a Christian organization, and we're a ministry.
Well, how come we're doing the show on a Sunday?
Sunday.
He went to church.
Why
This is church.
Why aren't
We're
you
gathered.
Why aren't you heathens in church?
Exactly. So we have to make it church
This is
right
supposed
now.
to be a day of rest.
We did Zoom church.
To
Do you have
justify.
any idea? Like God said, don't work on Sundays. Okay, guys are going straight to hell for this one.
Get into the whole Jesus rest thing. Okay.
Straight to hell.
This is church. This is church. So to make this church, we have to make sure. We're wondering if you could do us a quick solid and accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior.
On the show.
Personal Lord and Savior. It's a quick prayer.
I mean, let's just say, like, I agree with the principles that Jesus advocated, and there's great wisdom in the teachings of Jesus, and I agree with those teachings. And things like turn the other cheek are very important, because as opposed to an eye for an eye for an eye leads everyone blind. So forgiveness, is important, and treating people as you would wish to be treated. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Very important.
So it's like a 60-70%. Yes.
As Einstein would say, I believe in the God of Spinoza. But hey, if Jesus is saving people, I mean, I wouldn't stand in his way. I'll be sure, I'll be saved. Why not?
Sweet. We did it.
Yeah.
I think he just said yes.
We got him.
All right.
We got him.
To be saved. Sounds good.
You want to get baptized or anything? Real quick?
I was baptized.
Oh, okay.
Anglican,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's done.
They dunked me in the water when I was just a baby.
Cool.
This is like.
Second?
Yeah. I even had the blood and body of Christ, which was kind of weird, if you're a kid, you get to give you some weird tasting, biscuit and wine.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, isn't this kind of
Just cut it off when he said yes.
I'm like, is this some
Fading.
weird metaphor for cannibalism or something? I don't get it. Like, what the hell? I remember thinking that was just crazy when I was a kid. And I'm like, whoa, I mean, even as a metaphor, it's kind of odd,
Yeah, it
so it is. It's like, and should it be giving alcohol to minors? I was like,
We do grape juice. We're Baptists.
okay.
Yes.
I think it's unusual to even be thinking about that as a kid. Like as a kid, you just go through the motions, and then it's
Right.
later on that you think, wait a minute,
Yeah,
what
this
does
is
this
weird.
actually represent? What am I doing?
No, when I was a kid, I was like, is this actually blood and body? What?
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to eat somebody. And then I was like, what? This is, and I ended up did it anyway. I'm like, this seems like, okay, man, I don't know if this is just pretty odd, I remember thinking that even at age 5. So I was like, and I was definitely like, at Sunday school there, like when they were telling me all the stories, and I was like asking questions, and they really were upset that I was asking questions. And I was like, how did Jesus fed the crowd with 5 loaves of bread and 3 fish, and I'm like, how big was the crowd? And where did the fish and bread come from? Did from his cloak or something? Because I was reading books, and I was like, is this did they materialize? Is it kind of I don't know. Where did it come from? How did it? Would you take a bite of the bread and would the bread would just come back to being a full bread?
Yeah, you look away and it's
This is
kind
the
of pops
mechanics
back
of it.
out, Rubbermaid.
They left out the details.
Where did the universe come from?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying I know all the answers here. I'm just, it's just and Jesus was obviously very pro alcohol, because one of his miracles was turning water into wine.
Yeah.
And then there was they were having a party, they ran out of wine. Okay. And they're like, let's keep this banter going.
Good stuff.
Who can solve this problem?
We're out of White Claws.
The friggin' store's closed. And Jesus is like, I gotcha. Okay. Water, now wine. And they're like, party on. You know? So, you know,
Accurate.
pro
recreation.
partying with alcohol is literally one of the miracles.
Bible story time with
But
Elon Musk.
you are the it's like you're the savior. You kept the party going with lots of wine. That's great. Yeah.
Well, thank you. We
right.
appreciate you coming here and
thank you
talking with
so
us
much.
very much.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you in person, and you know, we'll continue to throw out the satire that we hope you'll respond to, and you know, keep that going a little bit. Oh, we didn't ask onion or the bee, but I guess that was kind of answered earlier,
Yeah, you mentioned
wasn't
it
it?
earlier.
Yeah. Yes, we already covered that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think the Onion has done some extremely funny stuff over time. It just seems to have been, you know, in recent years, somewhat infected by the woke mind virus. So that just makes everything less funny.
Yeah, that's true.
Woke mind virus is a world without humor.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Neuralink can solve that woke mind virus.
Get rid of
someday.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get
Thank
out
you
of
very
there.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. This was
All right.
awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
All right.